I'm excited about my new book, Every Day a Friday, How to Be Happier 7 Days a Week.
Joel Osteen's empire was worth $110 million in 2020. Then something happened. That changed everything. By 2025, insiders say he lost $60 million in just 5 years. His mega mansion went up for sale. His private jet disappeared. Staff at Lakewood Church started getting laid off quietly. But here's the shocking part. What Joel does for money now isn't preaching. It's something his congregation would never expect. The man who taught millions about prosperity is now desperate in his secret income source will blow your mind. Joel Osteen was born on March 5, 1963 in Houston, Texas. He was the youngest of 6 children raised in a house where the walls echoed with sermons, prayer, and camera wires. His father, Joel Osteen, had once been a Southern Baptist preacher, but left the denomination and started something entirely his own. In 1959, when Joel hadn't even been born yet, John converted an old feed store on the edge of Houston into the first Lakewood Church building. It was humble. But on that first day, 90 people showed up. That small crowd became the seed of something massive. John's style wasn't traditional. He brought in charismatic preaching, faith healing, and speaking in tongues. These things were foreign to Baptist traditions, but they stirred people, and the church kept growing. Joel watched this evolution from the front row, not as a preacher's kid just dragged along, but as a boy soaking in the energy of change and the rhythm of faith that seemed to flow with every service. That rhythm was shaken in 1981. Joel was 18 years old when his mother, Joel Osteen, was told she had metastatic liver cancer. It was already too advanced for treatment. Doctors sent her home with no more options. The air in the house changed. Joel watched his father gather their family and close friends and turn their living room into a prayer room. On December 11, 1981, Dodie said her faith would carry her through. Her body, weakened and fading, somehow recovered. She walked out of that sickness and the doctors didn't know how to explain it. She lived on. She even wrote a book called Healed of Cancer that became a testimony piece passed around the congregation. Joel helped duplicate those tapes. He watched how that single moment, one declaration of healing, became a spiritual pillar for the family and the church. That story would eventually shape how Joel thought about hope and miracle and what words could do when spoken with conviction. But Joel's early life wasn't all microphones and miracles. He went to humble high school and lived a fairly normal teenage life. Sports, friends, casual hobbies. He didn't like public speaking. He didn't want to preach. He liked cameras. He liked editing. He liked the quiet control of storytelling from behind the lens. So while Lakewood grew from 90 members to over 1,000, by the 1970s, Joel was busy learning how to operate equipment. He helped his father launch a weekly television broadcast that slowly expanded until it reached 100 countries. This wasn't a side hobby. Joel was shaping the church's identity on screen, building something that would travel farther than any sermon inside 4 walls. Still, people expected he'd eventually preach. He avoided it. He wasn't called. Not yet. His father's story lingered in the background. Joel Osteen was born in 1927. He had pastored as a Baptist, but had a spiritual awakening that broke him away. That moment sparked Lakewood. It started in the feed store, but by 1960, the church already had more than 1,000 people. They kept growing. John's TV broadcasts picked up momentum, and people were drawn to his mix of healing messages and prosperity themes. He talked about faith like it could build worlds, heal cancer, and pull people out of poverty. But all of that came with pressure. Joel, still a kid, saw his dad exhausted after sermons, wrestling with balancing leadership and family. The house felt like an extension of the pulpit. Even dinner conversations were laced with ministry debates. Then came the hidden part of their story. Before Dodie, John had been married once. Before his first marriage to Emma Jean Schaefer ended in divorce in the early 1950s, almost no one talked about it. It wasn't something the church broadcasted. In the 1950s, a preacher with a divorce wasn't good for image, so they buried it deep. Joel grew up in a home built on faith, but shaped by silence in some places. That silence taught him about the difference between what people see and what people hide. It would later influence how he carried himself, always smiling, always light, never letting the darkness peek through too much. The family's finances were tight in the early years. The house was modest. Joel watched his dad write book after book. 45 in total. Most were self-published. Sales were low at first, but these books spread John's message far and wide. Joel, still in his teens, was already helping manage the growing media presence. By the time he was 19, he was basically running the TV side of Lakewood. No theological degree, no sermon under his belt, but he knew how to frame a shot, edit a clip, time a sermon break, and track his father's outfits on yellow legal pads to avoid visual repeats. He was building something, not from a pulpit, but from a soundboard. He graduated high school in 1981 and enrolled at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa. He chose radio and TV communications, not theology. He lasted 1 year. The strict religious environment didn't sit right with him. He wanted hands-on learning, not chapel lectures and textbook debates. So, he left. He came back to Houston in 1982 and threw himself back into Lakewood's media arm. His father still wanted him to preach. Joel still resisted. He was focused on building Lakewood's first professional TV studio. The budget was small. The equipment was secondhand. He learned everything by doing, while the congregation only saw the polished broadcast. Joel was in the control room, fine-tuning every camera angle, adjusting lights, editing tapes, and making sure his father's words were clear, crisp, and broadcast-ready. His efforts were by 1984, weekly attendance at Lakewood jumped to 6,600. The church's TV presence exploded. Prosperity preaching mixed with modern visuals. Joel was still in the Background letting others shine. Especially his father. Around this time, he started dating Victoria. She was his confidant, someone he could admit things to. He told her he didn't want to preach, that his place was behind the scenes. They married in 1987, and she stood by him while he kept building the technical foundation of Lakewood. Joel's siblings were taking different paths. Paul became a medical missionary in Africa. Lisa helped him co-write books. Their dinner conversations were often intense, circling around faith, leadership, and expectations. Joel usually stayed quiet. He didn't need the spotlight. His work was in the wires, in the cameras, in the editing room. He wasn't leading prayers. He was stitching together stories. In the summer of 1982, Joel Osteen was just 19 and had only spent a year at Oral Roberts University before quitting. He didn't want to preach, didn't feel called to the pulpit. But he had an idea that wouldn't leave him alone. He told his father, Joel Osteen, who had founded Lakewood Church, that he wanted to launch a television ministry from scratch. No training, no blueprint, just a rented camera, a borrowed room, and a head full of raw determination. That fall, their first broadcast aired quietly on a local cable access station in Houston, watched by a few hundred households. No lights, no audience, no big expectations. But Joel took every frame seriously. By 1983, without attending seminary or taking the traditional route, Joel had become ordained through Lakewood. He wasn't on stage, but he was learning everything behind it. He edited each episode by hand, directed every angle, and even wrote down what shirts his father wore using yellow-line notepads, so future edits wouldn't jump. For the next 17 years, Joel didn't miss a beat. He edited and directed every broadcast himself, clocking more than 800 hours of polished content by the time the nines ended. Saturday nights were spent at his father's house, not relaxing, but preparing outfits and picking camera shots for Sunday. By 1987, the Lakewood broadcast aired in 100 countries and was pulling in millions of viewers every week. Joel's quiet grind wasn't just technical. He was building something global, brick by brick, episode by episode, with an obsession few could see and fewer understood. Underneath the lights and camera wires, Joel discovered something troubling. By the mid-80s, Lakewood was barely staying afloat financially. Expenses were piling up and donations weren't keeping pace. Joel Osteen ran the church with heart, but no real focus on business. So Joel took matters into his own hands quietly. Without telling his father, he approached Houston area businesses, grocery stores, furniture dealers, even funeral homes, and pitched them deals. They'd get a shout-out on Lakewood's program in exchange for sponsorship money. In just 2 years, Joel tripled the media ministry's income. What was once barely touching $100,000 in 1985 shot up past $300,000 by 1987. That quiet hustle gave the church breathing room. He reinvested it straight into gear, upgrading cameras and lighting, expanding the show's reach. It wasn't ministry as his father knew it, but it worked. Then in 1987, Joel made a move That stunned everyone. He convinced Lakewood's board to invest in KTBU TV 55, a Houston-based independent television station. This wasn't just funding. Airtime. Joel used church money to build the station from the ground up. Equipment, cameras, control rooms, the whole operation. It cost over $2 million. In 1980s dollars. A massive risk for any church, let alone one still gaining its financial footing. But by 1990, that station was beaming Lakewood services into 10 million homes across the country. Controversial among elders. Yes, but effective, more than anyone could have imagined. By the late 90s, KTBU was syndicating Lakewood nationwide. Joel had quietly taken the church from neighborhood sermons to a media empire without ever stepping into the pulpit. Through the 1990s, Joel's workdays rarely lasted less than 12 hours. He was the editor, the director, the lighting guy, and the quality checker. Every angle, every shadow, every sound mattered. He demanded award level standards. To him, Lakewood broadcasts had to feel like Monday Night Football or the Oscars. He argued often with staff who didn't match his standards. Cameramen had to be flawless. Sound engineers couldn't miss a beat. He still wouldn't preach. He left that to his father. Joel preferred the shadows, the wires, the editing bay. Then came January 1999. Just days after reluctantly giving his first sermon, Joel's world cracked. His father, Joel Osteen, died suddenly of a heart attack. On January 23rd. He was 77. Joel had only stepped on stage once. That one sermon had come just 6 days before.